Welcome back, folks, to another Bad Battle Scene Breakdown. This time I choose the Indian series Jhansi Ki Rani, episode 456. Set in the Indian Mutiny of 1857. Let's go marvel at one of the most moronic battle scenes yet filmed. Lakhshmi Bai, the Rani of Jhansi, is one of the most celebrated figures in Indian nationalist tradition. She flew high and proudly the banner of resistance to the British Empire, fought them with might and main, and failed like a Calcutta Winter Olympiad. Defeated again and again, she didn't give up. She always made a comeback somewhere until killed in battle outside her superbly fortified castle of Gwalior. Now I realise you're itching to watch twaddle like this, but if you want it, I promise to keep it down to 5 minutes. And here's the timestamp to skip to if you want to get straight to the embarrassment instead. It was not so much Britain that had conquered India, it was a private company, the East India Company, fielding armies vastly larger than Britain herself could, composed mostly of Indian men. In 1857, some Bengali units of that disparate army mutinied over a silly conspiracy theory, murdered everything British they could find, bullied the locals into joining their revolt unwillingly, and then got snuffed out by British forces coming at them like avenging angels. Included among those they bullied into joining their revolt was the Rani of Jhansi herself. She wrote letters to the British again and again, asking to be allowed to keep out of the revolt and be neutral, but those mutineers turned up on her doorstep and bullied her into joining it. I will be calling this war the Indian Mutiny. There's a common current in India today to call it the First Indian War of Independence, but call me old-fashioned, but I reckon that's a load of total and utter Pradesh. Most of the army stayed loyal to its paymaster, including these Sikhs who they had so recently conquered. Sure, the British were alien, but they essentially preferred the rule of this alien over the alien Moguls the British had so recently supplanted for them. Let alone the rapacious, warmongering Afghans. That's right, folks, they weren't always the doormat of the world. There was a time when they conquered much of India, and the Sikh religion, peace-loving as it is, kicked off largely as a resistance movement to all these Muslim conquest hordes coming from the northwest. The great lady was born in what is now Uttar Pradesh, just south of the elegantly named ceded and conquered provinces. Must have had a showstopper of a national anthem, does anyone know? She was born into the stifling superiority of being of the Brahmin caste. Manikarnika, by name, in no way a royal, but she was adopted by one, and when she married, which probably looked a lot like what you're seeing here, she adopted a boy. When the king died, the British refused to recognize adopted children as heirs. She screeched about the injustice of the evil, nasty British trampling on a Hindu custom, yet she was also cherry-picking because the fact that the wicked whiteys had also abolished another Hindu custom, sati, the obligation of widows, like her, to die horribly by being burned alive, is the only reason we are talking about her at all, and that she survived to become a national hero.
Mr. Gandhi, what do you think of Western civilization?
I think it would be a very good idea.
So if you really thought her motivation was this, then no. Material gain and self-advancement were quite sufficient to explain it. And not just her, that's also how this prick, who committed the Cawnpore massacre of British women and children and was her childhood playmate, how he came to be caught up in the rebellion too. So she took on the British in court about that adoption inheritance denial thing and got reamed. Fun fact, she hired an Australian lawyer to do it.
There is no one section, it's just the vibe of the thing.
Now, before we dive into our bad battle scene, a note of caution: please always seek a second opinion on anything you read about the Indian Mutiny, all the more so if you use Indian nationalist sources. Here's a case in point. This website freely lies in its efforts to manipulate the reader into hating the British more by painting the old Indian tradition of called being blown from a cannon as if it were unique to the British, and especially after the Indian Mutiny. The giant error of omission is in not telling you that it was already a long-established Indian practice, even in the Rani of Jhansi's own overlord, the Maratha Empire. It was still being practiced in Afghanistan decades after the British got over it. Even those Mughal overlords of the last several centuries, who are so often quoted as being nice and benevolent, no. I mean, how about more humane firing from a cannon? Wow.
Mr. Gandhi, what do you think of Western civilization?
I think it would be a very good idea.
By the way, another spectacular Indian execution method was trampling by a fucking elephant.
What do you think of Western civilization?
I think it would be a very good idea.
And in their other story I mentioned, where they say this could be found all over India, something followed by another, more expensive movie about the Rani of Jhansi. No, this sign only turned up in private clubs and not for another 70 years after the events of these films. That's enough potted history. Let's plunge into the bad battle scene now. We're in her capital city of Jhansi, and the British are coming, and here's a dirty traitor. Why is there a totally fictitious traitor in our midst? Because someone finds it embarrassing for some reason that the British took the city by storm. The senior slimeball loudly uses the name Orchard Gate over and over again so the incredibly tackily adorned British soldier outside can hear it and spread the word that the traitor is ready to open the gates for them. Having heard the coded word, the scout rushes back to tell the British officer of this Indian unit that Thunderbirds are go, and he tells a bunch of men who look like World War II Japanese snipers would look if they were that careless to go. We cut to the other somewhat piss-weak gates of the city where loyal forces, including a Bollywood hunk, are waiting to defend the city. But look at these guys. The red tunics, mate. The red tunics. They stand out like a whore in a nunnery. When these red tunic men are viewed by a girl boss with right in her heart, the red tunics we saw so clearly and would be viewable from orbit disappear. The fact that a cow near them is really losing it only seems to remove her suspicions. Or traitor's time again! I love the fact that the cannons he's got set up in ambush are not going to hurt anyone on foot, they're just going to mutilate the top of the gate. Bad guy artillery setup is probably just as daft. They're so close together, the crew have to run around the whole battery in order to load the muzzle end. Now, the muzzle of the cannon, this shit here that I've painted orange, shouldn't be there at all. It's called sleeving. It's done These days, with black powder weapons that people don't want to put a fantastic amount of powder in, that historically they did, that was not there. That part, the sleeving. You see, it's different when you have to pay for black powder today from when it was churned out of a factory somewhere and delivered to you in barrels. And the cannonball would be much larger, of course, way too heavy for one hand. Safely ensconced behind corflute painted grey, our dirty traitor redeploys all the defenders except that old woman to the gates the British won't be attacking. But the woman who has figured out his treason is very inconvenient, and rather than go through all the "curses you villain" routine, he just seizes her and cuts her throat. Cop this. This is the sound she makes when her throat is cut, I kid you not. Cart and gurgle sound this time. He hides the body, but the designated Disney princess soon figures out what he has done. Happily, having your throat cut ear to ear is not that big a deal, really, so she's able to talk.
Open the door!
By this stage, you're probably turning over in your head some of the more constructive things you could be doing with your time, like squirting a tube of Denka rub down your underpants. Notice how most of the infiltrators don't have the foliage as camouflage? Oh no, the time-honoured tragedy of guns against spears. But the bad guys carrying the guns lose them somehow and switch to swords next time. Yeah, like that. What you just saw I did not edit in any way. Now see there, they've got their guns as they're coming towards the camera, and in the very next take, no guns. They've switched to swords. Hey, someone go back and pick up all those rifles they've left on the ground somewhere. Almost instantaneously, the British and the defenders are thoroughly intermingled over a large area, with no one giving a floppy fuck whether anyone's going to knife him in the back, because they won't, somehow. And banish any thought that the British extracted a 10-to-1 kill rate when they stormed Jhansi. No, it was this shit, of course. I don't think we see any of the British win any of the combats here. Delightful moments like this guy who submissively gets into position ready to be flipped abound. Well, it made his right foot slide slightly. Which is the one and only bit of headway I can see the British side making so far. Joke, right? Well, she must have the power of mind reading, because there is no way in heaven or on earth she heard his words. This is India. It's a very noisy country. If you're wondering where all these explosions with lethality level beneath that of a New Year's Eve party popper are coming from, it's the British mindlessly firing into the inextricably mixed men of both sides.
Fire!
Sound effects department, you forgot the bangs. And in a trick borrowed from the original Batman movie and from Battlefield Earth, they turn him on his side to make him symbolically crooked. Get it? All this shit achieves in real life is to telegraph to your intended victim where his failed attacker is. The silent cannon continue their bombardment. No sane soldier, even one as monumentally badass as General Sir Hugh Rose, would stand right in front of the fucking muzzle. Anyway, notice how they don't hurt anyone. Hey, what? She's Indian. How did she get hurt? She must be pregnant again. That'll be it. Gloat.
Move!
Hold. We are going back and watching that wonderful Mr. Payback's Coming to Town walk again. Thank you, movie, for having a redeeming feature after all. Oops, can't hear the soundtrack over the ambient noise of his own awesomeness now. No, bugger it. We demand some make an entrance music. Wow. I have always regarded Bollywood as basically embarrassment put to music, but that is a seriously catchy song.
That motherfucker back there is not real!
Apparently the British have been let in the other gates as well, and they're pouring fire into that general melee. We cut to views of a young Queen Victoria back in the mother country. We see the sheer enormity of Hugh Rose's army. It looks great until you see things like men running out in front of the muzzles of men already aiming to shoot. It looks great.
But
In truth, it was heavily outnumbered by the mutineer armies in most of its battles. Yet it carved through the mutineer armies like a hot knife through butter because it was well motivated by revenge for ghastly atrocities. If you're wondering why they haven't simply shot her full of bullets yet, join the club. I don't have a clue why not either. Just use it or lose it while we've got such inane crap happening. Welcome back, folks. Now, it needs saying at this point that Hugh Rose actually encircled the great fortress with heavy siege guns and mortars and pounded away at strong points where brilliant, admittedly brilliant, Indian gunners served their pieces well. He didn't use half a dozen pieces sighted to rain death and shrapnel on his own troops, for Christ's sake.
Everyone, charge!
That's right, nothing like this shit here ever happened. It was a formal investment. They pulverized the walls, then they launched a general escalade of the walls and burst in, overpowering a garrison twice their own number. As in so many Asian movies, we have to bring in a species of bullshit called martial arts. If you actually use bullshit like this in real life, turning your back in a sword fight, then here is what actually happens. Ditto for when you just intermingle hopelessly like this, with no concern for enemies right behind you. As this Englishman in just such a mixed melee is about to find out. Watch. Returning to Hugh Rose and his charge through the Orchard Gate, if you're wondering, how the hell can these men get out of this predicament? They're up against a Disney princess. How can they study martial arts in time to save themselves? Yes, it's the Rani of Jhansi's mythical all-female regiment of female girl boss women. It's meant to make the audience swell with pride and... Fun fact, in the much maligned, evil, nasty Western civilization, we regard child soldiering as a full-on crime against humanity. Just saying.
What do you think of Western civilization?
I think it would be a very good idea.
I mean, the British never saw any of them anywhere, ever. Do you think they would omit to mention such a colourful detail as an all-female enemy combat unit? Really?
Attack!
Notice how they still have their rifles slung over their shoulders as they go into a fight for their lives. Oh yeah, and then they throw them away at some point. Now, please pay careful attention to these ultimate warriors over here. I selected that one case study at random. You can see this malaise happening everywhere. I got recruited into 2 war movies as an extra, including one in Russia, by the way, and I made sure of giving my level best. It pisses me off when fuckwits who get such a gig ruin it by acting like they're trying to remember their shopping list. But suddenly all the girl bosses start going down like sacks of shit tied in the middle. Don't know why.
Excellent.
Rani ki Jai. Jhansi ki Jai.
Goody goody yum yum.
And in that time-honoured trademark of dud screenplay writing anywhere, they carry on a conversation while fighting for their very lives in a sword fight. Yeah. That same trope that nearly shafted the enshrined classic Alexander Nevsky by the great Sergei Eisenstein. No, sword fighting is pure existence requiring pure attention.
You big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place, singing, we will rock you, everybody.
At this juncture, they send up the market-researched Bollywood heartthrob, who gives us a lesson in exactly what a fist striking a woolen coat sounds like. And it's unclear why he is alarmed by this spectacle. Oh, maybe he can tell that 1 or 2 of them have martial arts. Even the little girl has the leisure to carry on a conversation while she's locked in mortal combat with men who have a huge reach advantage over her. And the third wave of British Indian troops arrives, somehow still led by the same officer as the first two were. And in yet another time-honoured movie trope, all you have to do to load a muzzle-loading rifle is tamp away furiously with the ramrod like a 14-year-old with the best and less underwear catalogue. But there is a ray of hope. That guy who looks like he failed to score the dream gig in Bollywood Evil Dead starts distributing guns to those with right in their hearts, apparently finding them on a pile that isn't there, right? And just to clarify, only the British need to reload guns. The ones held by Indians have bottomless magazines in them, apparently. Even with the gratuitous extra cocking, like that the movies demand, these things are quite incapable of being fired. Like this fucking thing here with no way an ignition can take place. In presumably a botch of the editing process, the British commander gives totally the wrong order.
They're retreating!
Suddenly, both sides start shooting guns. Yeah, you know, that thing that should have been happening right from the first fucking millisecond of any battle. No, you cannot duck faster than a bullet can travel. And then something bizarre, even by this show's standards, happens. They're in a completely different location. What? How? They are well and truly outside the building now. Look, here comes the British force. What the fuck? And for a crazy few seconds, the action actually looks realistic. That is, the firing and the being hit. That looks just like a man has been hit. What happened? This is what it should look like. But it's back to that weird duck walking again. Fuck, that was good. That really looked right. Although here's an extra, overcompensating very badly. Hey, that looked great. It would look better if his hat hadn't miraculously reappeared on his way to the ground, though. Hugh Rose kicks butt. But I have to point out that that is actually a real flintlock gun the man is holding. Why wasn't that shown prominently in other close-ups, instead of these cobbled together tinker toys? I'll tell Mum! So the girl boss of ages grabs one of those PVC crappy mock-ups, directs her gaze in this direction while the gun is facing in this direction, red arrow, and of course she gets a hit. Reality check. Hugh Rose went through his entire 2-year Indian service without getting a scratch. No, you cannot bluff career soldiers with one-shot weapons that they know you've already fired and haven't reloaded yet. It would take about 15 seconds if you're really good at it. But their fictitious victory is confounded when they realise that her adopted son has gotten out. Damodar was his name, and never mind the well-attested fact that she used to carry him into combat, we're trying to whitewash her, remember. In Western culture, it would be called reckless endangerment of a child. She even jumped off the city wall with him.
What do you think of Western civilization?
I think it would be a very good idea.
Look, if those shields could stop a bullet, you wouldn't be able to lift them. Hey, what? At some point the British have won the battle inside the city. Well, these men must be Afghans. I'm not sure who they're being passed off as in the show, but in real life, the Rani of Jhansi put her faith in her 1,500 trusted Afghan foreigners. You saw one earlier in that Richard Scollins colour plate, but good luck trying to find them in Indian nationalist publications. No, you didn't. Oh my god, you did. It says guns. Is that the best research you could do? It is such a bureaucratic organisation as the Honourable East India Company did not put the word guns on such a chest. Try this. Try 1853 pattern Enfield rifled musket, 5.77 caliber, and in a utilitarian sort of font. I'm not sure if this thing is meant to be a cash register or a typewriter, but either way, it's decades away from existing yet. Somehow the Rani successfully got away from the fall of her city at some point, and so did her inner circle here on the right. And as if that wasn't a head-scratcher enough already, the Rani and her paladins can't wait to get back to the defeated city same day, where we see Hugh Rose getting his totally fictitious wound treated as publicly as possible by a 1980s ska band.
I like driving in my car.
Guys, you have totally failed to make this doctor look 1858. Oh, and it says bullets over there. It's not even the first 1980s out-of-place costume in this series. There's a straight-up ska band saxophonist in the first episode, along with a British officer who strives to deliver Charlton Heston, but succeeds only in delivering Borat.
Everybody know it's for girls!
No, miss, you misunderstood.
To admittedly lukewarm, critical reception, but she is way too great a patriot to apologise for it, and it causes ructions with the British. Never mind that this incident never happened, just like that. It never fucking happened. And in that spectacular new movie I mentioned before, Manaki Neko, they now what have I done? Mani Karnika, yeah, that's it. They pointlessly pay tribute to the dud TV series by including that annoying fictitious milksop Jeff Gordon.
Welcome to the house of fun. Now I've come of age. Welcome to.
But I'm sure it's not the first 1980s ska band ever to be too drunk to find each other and reunite. Look at this absolute pearl here. Now to show you how our battle turned out. In an incident pulled straight out of the butt crack of Made-Upistan, the Rani returns to fallen Jhansi with a corpse to accuse the dirty traitor and also Hugh Rose, who was only doing his duty. Get over it, lady. Come on. and suddenly the big guns on the battlements start slaying British soldiers left, right and centre, manned by that goon with the head like a sucked mango. Gauss Khan, so he's got a name right. Right, he was the Rani's master gunner, and he died in the battle. He is much commemorated, as you see. He deserves better than to have the wrong month on his death date like that. And as a Muslim, they seize upon him as a precious resource when they're trying to promote this as a thoroughly diverse rebellion. I really think a master gunner and the sole upholder of Islam in this crew would take a lot of pride in his appearance and not just look like that guy who won't stop staring at you on the subway. East India Company troops are felled like so much wheat, just when they'd conditioned us to think cannons were non-lethal, even sort of good for you, like vitamins and crap.
Tell him he's dreaming.
This is another total fabrication, and suddenly they can't fire the guns anymore because the dirty traitor has sabotaged the touch holes with wax.
The sequence you are about to see has been hailed as the gayest thing ever.
Viewers, he now lifts a cannon of the kind normally pulled by fucking elephants and pushes it with one hand straight up the nose of the enemy army, who, by the way, couldn't shoot the wall of a barn from the inside.
Tell him he's dreaming.
I said one-handed because he's actually carrying that impossible bulletproof shield in the other hand. Oh, by the way, did you notice how that stone wall, now we get it in loving close-up, we can see it's a bunch of pieces of cardboard shoddily tacked together and meant to be filmed from the other side.
This situation absolutely requires a really futile and stupid gesture.
Now this truly dildonic sequence is made up from about 30 seconds of actual takes, and they show each take at least 8 times. Not kidding. The time has come to apply some badass therapy. Say, Hugh Rose his ass. No, it is physically impossible for human reflexes to outsmart an incoming bullet. And by the way, lead bullets don't strike sparks. He even ambles around to the front of it now with his shield refused, and still no one can land a hit on him. Is that true though? Clearly not a gunpowder explosion. Thank you, Hugh. Gauss Khan gets shot in the right shoulder and clutches his left, of course. Fucking hell. Your move, case moth head. These fuckwits have taken a national hero and turned him into a laugh riot, but that's nothing compared to what the girl boss Disney princess is about to do. Look at that. This is clearly a cellar-dwelling gamer's idea of warfare. Just when we'd already hit Jedi Knight levels of implausibility, the girl boss has to send sprays of arrows at a time from presumably a whole bunch of bows at a time with just 2 hands. Naturally, we don't see how she does it. And as if it wasn't brain dead enough already, the arrows explode. Look at that. Can you imagine how incredibly dangerous it is to haul those around? Unlike those unfeasible Rambo things that somehow never went off until he needed them to go off, they don't have a pressure button to activate them. They are just slabs of metal tied on with wire. You've done it now. I'll use the extra floppy one on you, or my name's not Wannabe Saddam. Please take particular note of the inspired performance of this extra here. Oh my god, this man reloaded the cannon. How the fuck did he do that? Yes, he doesn't have a ramrod. He must have shoved the flaming torch on top of the gunpowder and ball to ram it. Yes, I'd like to watch someone try that sometime. It would save all the trouble of blowing him from a cannon muzzle later. And then we see Muhammad Ghulam Ghaus Khan blow himself apart, deliberately, thus adding the taint of suicide to a national hero's death, as if he hadn't been ridiculed enough already in this. There isn't a dry eye in the house as we linger over this tragedy. But he gets up and goes back inside and has a long drawn-out deathbed scene where he hits all the right levers about Indian resistance unified between the fuck it. Oh my god, 40 minutes. Alright, from now on, I'll wrap it up quickly. Now please join me in part 2.